The boots sank deeper with every step. Rain sheeted down over the broken fields of Flanders, soaking uniforms, rifles, skin. The soldiers moved in silence, their breath ghosting in the gray dawn, helmets slick with water, feet heavy with mud. There was no ground beneath them anymore, just sludge, cold and bottomless, swallowing trenches, bodies, everything. They weren't marching. They were wading into hell. The British called it Passchendaele. The Germans called it Hölle. Hell. Either name would do. By the summer of 1917, the landscape around Ypres had been shelled into ruin. Trees were stumps, roads were gone, the fields were cratered beyond recognition, and when the British opened a 15-day bombardment to begin the assault, all it did was break the crust, unleashing a swamp beneath. Every shell hole became a lake, every trench collapsed in on itself, and still the order came down: advance. They tried to laugh about it. Some men joked that they'd left their boots in France because the mud had pulled them off. Others tied boards to their feet like makeshift snowshoes. But there was no stopping it. Soldiers stepped into what looked like shallow puddles and vanished to their waist, or deeper. Some never came out. They dragged wounded men on stretchers across duckboards, slick with blood and rain. One slip, and the stretcher dropped. If the wounded man fell face down into the mud, there wasn't time to pull him out. He drowned. One Canadian officer recalled the smell of rot, of stagnant water, of men too long unburied. "The mud stank of the dead," he wrote, "and we walked through it for weeks." They lived in that filth, slept in it, ate what they could scavenge: bread soaked in gasoline-tasting water, biscuits green with mold, tea brewed from rain caught in helmets, letters from home dissolved in wet pockets, rifles jammed, cigarettes turned to pulp. Their minds began to falter. One man watched a friend get hit by artillery and searched for his face in the mud, weeping because he couldn't find it. Another sat laughing beside a crater until the medics pulled him away, his entire unit gone, his boots melted to his feet from a shellfire hit. At night, the screams never stopped. Shells fell constantly. The wind carried voices that weren't real, and the mud whispered back. Weeks passed, months. They took one ridge, lost another, gained 10 yards, then fell back 20. The wounded moaned in flooded trenches as rats swam past them. In places, the water was waist deep. Snipers picked off stretcher bearers. Medics sank into the same mud as their patients. One soldier wrote, "We prayed to be wounded just to leave, but not in the legs. If you couldn't walk, you'd drown." By October, they reached the final ridge, the shattered ghost of Passchendaele itself. There was no village left, no prize to win, just more shell holes, more corpses, more rain. But they were ordered to take it, so they did. The Canadians were the ones who finally dragged themselves over the last rise, slipping, crawling, dragging the wounded behind them. They reached the top and found it empty. The Germans had pulled back. There were no cheers, no flags, just silence, and the steady drip of water on tin. By the end of the battle, over 500,000 men had been wounded, killed, or simply disappeared, swallowed by a battlefield that turned into a bog. They drowned, bled out, went mad. Some still lie beneath the mud, lost forever. Years later, soldiers who survived refused to speak of it, not because they forgot, but because they couldn't. Passchendaele wasn't just a battle. It was a place that broke men so completely, even the mud remembers. Thank you for listening to Last Post History. Subscribe for more true stories from the world at war.